It's strawberry time, and when strawberries are in season, I'm making strawberry jam. So in this video, I am making a low sugar strawberry jam. So if you want to see that process, keep watching. If you're new to my channel, I'm Denise Jordan, and I teach women to make wise home health and beauty decisions. So if you want to learn more about running a household, start now by hitting that subscribe button and tap that little bell icon so you don't miss any upcoming videos. Okay, let's jump into it. I grew up watching my mom make jams and jellies and all kinds of preserves, and I do the same thing for my family. And in the summertime, when the strawberries are in, I love to make strawberry jam. But now that I'm a little older and more people are more health conscious, I thought I would try an option that has all the flavor but not as much sugar. And I will say that I saw my friend Mary at Mary's Nest make this recipe. It just looked so good, and Mary is into traditional cooking. She calls it traditional cooking for the modern pioneer, and it was a low sugar option, and I thought, well, why don't I just give that a try? So let me show you what I'm going to use. We're going to need about 5 cups of strawberries, so I think I should be able to get that from this batch. We're also going to need 3 cups of sugar, and I've already got that measured out because when it's time to pour, I don't want to be messing around trying to measure out the sugar. So 3 cups of sugar. I will also use a box of serjella pectin. My mom always used serjella, so I use serjella. And this is the one that is for use in less or no sugar needed recipes. There is another kind of serjella, so make sure if you're making this low sugar option that you get the serjella for low sugar recipes. So there's that. And then since I've been canning for quite a while, I had plenty of jars, but what I did need was some new lids, and then some of my tops, my little screw-on tops, had gotten a little rusty, so I wanted some new things like that. So I picked up a box of Ball Sure Tight 12 lids with bands, and I can never think of that name, but it's the bands, the little screw-on bands. So I picked up a box of the Ball lids with bands, and they're BPA free, and they're the regular mouth bands. And then I also have 12 canning jars. And let me show you my jars. Now when I'm making jelly or jam, I like to use these small 8-ounce Ball canning jars, and they're also called mason jars. I've got them already washed. So I've already washed my jars, and right now they're in the pot, and they're just kind of boiling, so I like to try to sterilize them, so to speak. I know that may not necessarily be needed today, but I'm old-fashioned. I learned how to can from my mom, so I still use some of those techniques. And this is just a water bath canner, which is what I use when I'm just doing jams and jellies. And water bath canning, let me just say, is mostly used for high acid foods like jams and jellies and that kind of thing. You can't use water bath canner if you're trying to preserve any kind of meat or stuff like that. Another one of the big resources that I use when I'm canning or preserving anything is the Ball Blue Book. I don't know how many times this thing has been republished or edited or whatever, but this is like the Bible. This is the Holy Grail when you need to do any kind of preserving or canning, that kind of thing. So if you want to give it a try, make sure you pick up a Ball Blue Book along with whatever other supplies you pick up, because it's got a list in here of what you need, what you don't need, and what to do and what not to do. So make sure you use this if you're new to canning and you want to give it a try. Even if you're old to canning, you're a very experienced canner, a Ball Blue Book is perfect to have on your shelf. So there's that. And then a few other things that I'll be using will be a measuring cup, and I'm going to use this to measure out my strawberries. I'm going to use a whisker to kind of stir in my serjella and the sugars, and then I will need a ladle, a skimmer, and I've got my And then I will also use this funnel, which I will set on the top of the jar, like so. And it lets me pour directly into the jar and not spill it all over the place. And then I'll also be using this debubbler. And what you do with the debubbler is you just kind of run it around the side of the jar to kind of help get the air out, let the air escape. And then of course this little magnetic little thing is what I use to pick my lids up with out of my water bath. And I will say too that I've already got my lids washed, and right now they're in the pan over there on the stove, that little saucepan with some hot water, and they're just kind of resting there. And I will say I did learn something new from watching Mary. I always boiled my lids to sterilize them before I used them, and I realize now that probably wasn't the best thing to do, and it could account for why every now and then one of my jars didn't seal properly, because I was disturbing the sealant on the lid, so to speak. So this time I just put them in the hot water and just kind of let them sit to just stay clean in that way. And then I've got my bands already washed, and they're just, again, they're over there on the sink, and they're just kind of drying and just ready for me to use. So now I'm going to get my strawberries washed and kind of get things started. So let's get into it. And I hope I mentioned that I will be using 4 tablespoons of lemon juice as we get the process started. So the first thing I'm going to do is rinse these strawberries, and I'm going to save the tops. Typically when I rinse them, I will cut this top off and discard it, but I'm going to save these tops. One of the things that Mary said is you can make some strawberry vinegar with these scraps, so I think I'm going to give that a try as well. So let me get these washed, and I'll put the scraps over in this bowl, and I'll put the strawberries in this sieve. Mary showed how to core the strawberries with a apple core, and I had not tried that before. I usually just cut the tops off with a paring knife because I was going to discard all of that. So coring the strawberries like this really is quite nice. I really learned something from Mary. I usually just cut the tops off with a paring knife, but since I'm going to try to make that strawberry vinegar, I'm not going to do that today. And you want to make sure that you're just using good fresh strawberries. You want to use them as quickly as possible when you get them. One thing let me suggest too, when you buy strawberries in the store, don't taste them. When I was a little girl, whenever my dad bought fruit, he would always taste one, grapes, strawberries, whatever, to see if it was sweet, to decide whether or not he wanted to get it. And then he would make his purchase based on that. But what I have learned today is that sometimes there is bacteria that is on that fruit, especially dependent upon how it was handled when it was being picked and processed and shipped. So don't taste the fruit in the store. Don't taste it until you've washed it. So these are the last of the strawberries that I had to wash. So now I will get them in the bowl so that we can begin to mash them. So now I'm going to go ahead and get these strawberries mashed up, and it is more than a notion to mash them. It takes a little bit more elbow power than you think to mash a strawberry. And then once I get them mashed up, I will actually measure them to make sure that I've got the number of cups of pureed strawberries that I need. You don't want to eyeball it when you're making jam or jelly, because if you don't have enough fruit or you don't have enough sugar, then it may not gel like it should. So I will go ahead and get this mashed up, and then when I get it done, we'll come back. So now that my strawberries are nicely mashed, I'm going to add them to the pan that I'm going to use on the stove for the cooking. So I'm going to use this stainless steel pan to cook the strawberries in. So I'll measure up into the pan, and I've got this measuring cup that I plan to use. And I'll just do 1 cup at a time, just to make sure it's accurate. The thing with jelly making and preserving and that kind of thing is it does need to be very precise. Just the right amounts of sugar with fruit, that kind of thing. So I've added 2 cups of strawberry puree to the pan, and I'll keep doing that until I've got 5. And I think I've got enough in here for 5, but if I don't have enough, then I'll just mash up some more strawberries and then add them to the mix. So let's get that going. There's 3, there's 4. And there's 5. And I've got probably about another cup left here in my bowl. So I bought some pound cake the other day, so maybe we'll see what I do with that. But let's set this aside for now. So now let's take this pot over to the stove and get it heated up. And you'll notice that I had to move that water bath canner off of this burner. I don't know about you, but I kind of like to work on this side. So I had moved that over there so that I could work on this side and get whatever I needed off the counter. Mary's got one of those fancy schmancy electric water bath canners, and I now see the value of that. The other thing is that this is only the second time I've tried to can something on this glass top stove, and I'm just a little bit nebulous about that. I'm real careful not to use anything that's going to scratch up the cooktop, and I did can some tomato sauce last season, but I was a little worried about the weight of that heavy canner with those quart jars. So I'm glad these are just the little 8-ounce jars, but I think I might invest in one of those electric canners. So thanks, Mary, for showing me that little goodie. So I turn the heat up and we'll let that come to a boil that we can't stir down. And when it gets to that point, I'll add the serjella. So I've got it right here ready to go. And I also brought my 3 cups of sugar over here so I can have it ready to go, because when I'm ready to pour the sugar in, I want to just keep it stirring and just kind of go, go, go and not let any time lapse in between. So I'm ready for some jam, so I want that to get to cooking as soon as possible. So it's starting to boil, but it's not a boil that I can't stir down yet. So I'll bring it up a little closer so you can take a look. So you can see it is boiling, but I can stir that boil down. So we've got to let it cook until I can't stir that boil down. I probably should have added this before I turned the heat on. So there's 4 teaspoons of lemon juice. And now I'm going to stir in the pectin. And I want to keep stirring this as much as possible because I don't want it to stick. One of the things that always happens when you make jams or jellies and that kind of thing is you get a little bit of foam on the top of the jam and the jelly, and it can make your jelly or your jam cloudy. So you always have to skim that off. But one of the things that she said was that using the butter helps to kind of cut that foam. It does something with disrupting the surface tension so that you don't get as much foam. You'll still get some, but not quite as much. So that was something else that I learned. I never would have thought about putting a little bit of butter in the jelly, but if it helps to get rid of some of that yucky foam, I'm all for it. And of course, we'll see how it tastes. So, like I said, I've made lots of jams and jellies, but I've not used this particular recipe the way Mary is showing us. Now, let me also say, this is not a tutorial. I'm just making strawberry jam for my family, and for the most part, this is the way that I do it, with a few new twists that I'm learning from Mary. If you actually want a tutorial, then I will link Mary's video below because her tutorial is excellent. And it's starting to bubble, which is good, but it's not a bubble that I can't stir down just yet. And I'm still getting a little bit of foam. So it came to a rolling boil that I couldn't stir down, and I added the sugar, and unfortunately the camera shut off, so I didn't capture myself adding the sugar, but just know that I have. And I have to continue to stir this now until it's at another rolling boil because I don't want it to stick. And now I am just stirring and stirring as it continues to cook. Now it looks like it's at a nice rolling boil that we can't stir down. It's boiling and boiling, and I'm stirring it, but it's steady boiling. So we'll let it cook for 1 more minute, and then we'll take it off the stove. And you'll notice that even though we added the butter, there was still a little bit of foam in it, but there's not as much foam as what I've had when I didn't use the butter, so looks like that could be an interesting little tip. And then one of the things I also did was I did as she suggested. I put a plate in the freezer with a spoon. Typically when I'm checking, I would just kind of see how the jam rolled off the spoon this way, and if it formed a sheet, then I would know it was ready. But I like the idea of trying it on a cold plate with a cold spoon, so we'll see how that works. As you can see, there is some foam on there, like right there and right there, so I'm going to take that off with this spoon. It's just sitting right there on top of the jam. Okay, so I think it looks pretty good. So now let me get that plate out of the freezer. So I'll get a teaspoon of jam, put it on this plate, and then we'll look at how it goes. And look at that, it's just oozing just a little bit. So I think it's the perfect consistency. So it's definitely ready, and even the part with the foam in it tastes good. This would be great on ice cream. So I'll get some jars out and we'll start getting it in the jars. Okay, so now let me get a couple of jars out of the pot. And you see I had to move it back over here now, so I'm going to pour the hot water out of the jar. Clean funnel, going to sit it right there in the top of the jar. Clean ladle, and I'm going to ladle some jam into my jar. And I'm going to leave about a 1/4 inch of headspace. That means space at the top of the jar. Now, one of the things that Mary did, which was new to me, was she took some vinegar and cleaned the top of the jar. I like that idea. Well, we were supposed to get 6 8-ounce jars, and that's exactly what we got. Got a little bit of sticky on my hand, so it's delicious. So now, I like that thing that Mary did where she showed us how to use like a little vinegar to clean off the tops of the jars, because as you can see, there's a little bit of stickiness around the jar and on the lid, so let's take care of that. Okay, so now I'm going to clean the tops of the jars. with just a little bit of vinegar and a paper towel. Now there's one thing that I forgot to say, and that is when my mom used to can, she did not always use mason jars. Sometimes she would use old jars that maybe she had purchased something in, and she would use those. Now what I'm doing here is I'm running the edge of this debubbler around just to make sure there's no air pockets down in there, because it's the air pockets that can make the jam go bad. So you just want to kind of walk it around the edges just to make sure there's no air pockets down there. But as I was saying, she would use sometimes just old jars that maybe she had bought something in, and then she would reuse those jars to can with. That is not recommended. It is recommended that you use bona fide mason jars, which are meant to stand up to the heat that is needed for canning. So now I'm going to use my little magnetized lid lifter and just put it on the top of my jar. And this just lifts it right out of the hot water and puts it in place. Now I'm going to put my bands on, and I'm going to put them on until it doesn't go anymore, and then I just give it a slight little twist. You don't want to have it on there too tight, just snug enough. So just kind of give it a nice little twist till it doesn't twist anymore, and then just a little bit more of a twist. And then we'll put it in our water bath canner, and that will take care of the rest of our processing, that water bath. I learned to twist it until it was tight and then turn it back just a little bit. So now let's put them in the water bath. So here they are in the rack, and now I'm going to just set them down in the water. You can see the bubbles start to come out, and there's probably about 2 inches of water over the top of the jars. I'll put the lid on, and I'll turn it on high. So I've got the 6 jars of jam in the water bath canner, and you can hear the water is starting to kind of come up to temperature again. It's starting to get hot and starting to boil a little bit. I'm going to process it for about 15 minutes, and then I'll take it out and I'll let it sit. And as it sits and it begins to create a vacuum, you'll start to hear the little suction where the lid just kind of sucks in. So I'll make sure you hear that when it happens. But right now, I'm going to let this process for a bit, and then we'll come back. And this is how much was left in the pot. So I put this little bit in a jar, and I thought, I'm going to put this on some ice cream. It tastes delicious. And if I didn't taste this for you before, let me do it again. It is absolutely delicious. And look, it's already the consistency for jam. So I can just spread this on toast right now. Okay, so now it's been 15 minutes that it has processed. That means I brought it to a full rolling boil, and then I processed it for 15 minutes after that. Now I know in Mary's tutorial she said 10 minutes, but she's got that fancy electronic one, and I've just got the old-fashioned water bath canner, and according to the Ball Blue Book it said 15 minutes to process it. So I thought that's what I better do, and that's what I've been used to doing. So now let me get that turned off, and then we'll lift the jars out of the water. Hear that little popping noise? They're starting to seal. So I'm going to lift them out and I'll bring them over to the counter. Hear that little pop? That's them sealing. So I'm going to get these off the rack now. And then they're going to sit on the counter for 24 hours. And then I can take the band off of them. According to the Ball Blue Book and the instructions that comes with the lids and the bands, it says they are shelf stable for 18 months. If you open one, then you need to refrigerate it. And this is what you would use to refrigerate it with. These are the little plastic storage caps that you can get at Walmart or Target or any place that sells canning supplies. And you would put this on it when you refrigerate it. And as I said, it's shelf stable for 18 months. So you would take the band off and just let it sit on the shelf with just a lid on it, and the lid should be vacuum sealed. And then you would replace that lid with this when you pop it into the fridge after you've opened it to use. Now this I saved out so that I could just like make a slice of toast and just get a taste on toast right away. It was great on a spoon, but I wonder how good it is on toast. So my question for you is, what is your favorite kind of berry jam? My favorite berry jam is strawberry, but my favorite jelly is raspberry. So what's your favorite jam? And if you have any questions about this whole process, just leave them in the comment section below and I will definitely get back to you. And don't forget to check out Mary's tutorial where she walks you through step by step and gives you instructions on every little piece about how to do water bath canning. And if you like this video, you might like my blackberry cobbler, because this is another one of the videos that will be in my series, The Fruits of the Season. And strawberry jam is certainly one of the treats that comes from the fruits of the season. So I will link that video above so that you can check it out. And you might also like my maple butternut squash. So I will link that one above as well. Okay, hon. What do you think?
Good.
This is pretty darn good. It's delicious. Low in sugar, packed with flavor. And I didn't even put any butter on my toast, which is what I normally do, but it is amazing. Now, something else you can do with that strawberry jam is just take a little bit of it and heat it in the microwave. And you could either spoon it over ice cream, have a nice little strawberry sundae, or spoon it over some pound cake and have a nice little strawberry treat that way. So pound cake or ice cream, either way is absolutely delicious.
Good.
How do you like it on the cake? What do you like best, the ice cream or the cake?
Ice cream.
Oh, okay.
That's why.
I won't. And just so you know, I've raised 3 children. I've managed a home for more than 45 years, and I'm a nurse by profession. So if you want to learn more about running a household, subscribe. I would love to have you as a member of the TNT community. In the meantime, this is Denise Jordan saying goodbye. I will see you in the next video.